Admiral James Thompson stood at the large window of Earth's orbital station, his weathered face reflecting in the reinforced glass as he watched the alien ships take position around Earth. His hands were clenched into fists behind his back, knuckles white with tension. 20 years of serving as humanity's top military representative to the Galactic Council had taught him to hide his emotions, but today that mask was cracking. "They're activating the quarantine grid, sir," reported Lieutenant Anna Reed, her voice tight with controlled anger. The young officer's fingers flew across the holographic display, showing the energy readings from the alien vessels. Thompson didn't reply immediately. He watched as faint purple lines began appearing between the Council ships, forming a web that would soon cage Earth like an animal deemed too dangerous to roam free. "Play the Council's message again," he ordered quietly. The air filled with the smooth, artificial voice of the Council's translation system. "By unanimous vote of the Galactic Council, Earth and its colonies are hereby placed under indefinite quarantine. Evidence has been presented proving humanity's involvement in multiple acts of aggression against peaceful Council worlds. Until humanity can demonstrate its ability to exist peacefully within galactic society, this quarantine will remain in effect." Unanimous vote. Thompson spat the words like poison. "After everything we've done for them. After all the trade agreements, the medical advances we shared, the pirates we helped them fight." In the command center behind him, dozens of human officers worked at their stations, monitoring the growing energy web that would soon cut Earth off from the rest of the galaxy. They had all seen this coming, but none had believed it would actually happen. Humanity had been part of the Galactic Council for only 30 years, young compared to many species, but they had earned their place. Or so they had thought. A new alert flashed across the main screen. "Sir," called out Officer Mike Baker, "we're receiving a private transmission." It's from Marcus Reed." Thompson turned sharply. Marcus Reed was humanity's representative on the Council, or had been, until the vote 2 hours ago. "Put him through to my private office." Now, inside his office, Thompson activated the secure communication system. Marcus Reed's hologram appeared, his usually immaculate appearance now disheveled, his eyes wild with urgency. "James, thank God you're there. Listen carefully. We don't have much time." Reed spoke rapidly. "It was all a setup. The attacks on those Council worlds, the ones they blamed us for. I found proof. The Blue Peaks colony massacre. It was staged by the Regellians. The destruction of the Centauri trade fleet. The Arcturus Confederation did it themselves." Thompson felt his blood run cold. "Why?" "Fear, James. Pure fear. Our growth rate, our adaptability, our military potential. It terrifies them. The older species formed a secret alliance. They decided it was better to cage us now than face us as equals in a century." On Thompson's desk, another alert flashed. The quarantine grid was at 60% power. "Marcus, can you get this proof to?" "No time." Reed interrupted. "They're coming for me. I've hidden the evidence in." Sudden noise erupted in the background of Reed's transmission. "They're here. Remember, James. Project Oracle. It's all in project." The transmission cut off. Thompson stood frozen for a moment, then rushed back to the command center. The quarantine grid now glowed bright purple, nearing completion. "Sir," Lieutenant Reed called out, "we're losing connections with our outer colonies. Communications are being cut off. The grid is at 85% power." Thompson watched as humanity's first and only allies in the galaxy betrayed them. Each growing purple line represented decades of trust shattered, of friendship turned to fear, of peace turned to imprisonment. "Send this message to all Earth forces," he ordered, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent command center. "As of this moment, we are at war. Not by our choice, but by their treachery. Record everything. Document every second of this betrayal. And prepare." He turned to face his crew, his eyes hard as steel. "They think they're caging a primitive species. They think we'll accept this quietly. The grid reached full power. Earth was cut off from the galaxy. Thompson's last words hung in the air like a promise. They have no idea what they've just started. 5 years after the quarantine began, the Galactic Council received exactly what they expected from Earth. Nothing but silence. Their monitoring stations picked up no unauthorized transmissions, no attempts to break through the barrier, and no military buildup. To the galaxy, it seemed humanity had accepted its cage. They were wrong. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a facility that didn't officially exist, Dr. Alice Walker stared at the results on her screen for the 5th time. Her hand shook as she reached for her coffee cup. "Run it again," she ordered the computer. The test chamber hummed to life once more. Inside, a small probe disappeared from normal space, passed through the quarantine field sample they'd stolen, and reappeared on the other side. The computer's voice responded coolly. "Test 847 successful. Quantum phase transition achieved. Zero energy signature detected." Walker pressed the facility's internal communication button. "Get me Commander Steele. Now." Robert Steele arrived within minutes, his military uniform crisp despite the late hour. "Tell me you have something, Doctor." Walker pointed to the test chamber. "We can beat their cage, Commander. The quantum phase technology works. Their barrier means nothing if we can simply step through it." Steele watched as she ran another test. The probe passed through the barrier as if it wasn't there. "How soon can we scale this up to ship size?" 6 months for a prototype. Maybe a year for a full fleet. Walker pulled up the technical specifications. "But that's not the best part. Remember those energy readings we got from their ships 5 years ago? Their shield technology works on the same basic principles as the quarantine field." Steele's eyes widened as he understood. "You mean our ships won't just be able to pass through the quarantine. They'll be able to pass through any defense shield in the galaxy." In another hidden facility, this one beneath the Pacific Ocean, Admiral Thompson reviewed the latest intelligence reports. The Council worlds had grown complacent. Their guard ships around Earth had been reduced by 60%. Their monitoring of Earth's activities had become routine mechanical. "Show me the shipyards," he ordered. A holographic display changed to show vast underwater construction facilities. Hundreds of ships were being built in secret, each incorporating the new quantum phase technology. They were smaller than traditional warships, but far more lethal. Traditional armor was useless against weapons that could phase directly inside an enemy vessel. "Production is on schedule," reported Officer Baker, now promoted to captain. "All ships will be ready within 8 months." Thompson nodded. "And the cores?" "Dr. Walker's quantum bombs are ready. Small enough to slip through any planetary shield, powerful enough to crack a world in half if needed." Baker paused. "Are we really going to use them?" "Only if we have to," Thompson replied quietly. "But the Council needs to understand one thing. You don't cage humanity and walk away unscathed." In orbit, the Council's guard ships continued their lazy patrols, their crews bored and inattentive. None of them noticed the occasional quantum fluctuation as Earth tested its new technology. None of them detected the small probes that slipped past their barrier, mapping the positions of every Council world and military installation. On the Council worlds, life continued as normal. The human problem had been solved, or so they thought. Some younger aliens even questioned whether the quarantine was still necessary, but the older species quickly silenced such talk. In the Council's main chamber, gathering dust in a forgotten corner, Marcus Reed's final warning sat encrypted in an old data crystal, waiting to be found. The evidence of the conspiracy that had condemned Earth remained hidden, but it wouldn't stay that way forever. The Council had expected Earth to rage against its imprisonment. They had prepared for attacks, for attempts to break the barrier, for desperate pleas and negotiations. The silence unnerved them at first, but as the years passed, they convinced themselves they had been right. They never considered that silence could hide purpose, that inaction could mask preparation, that submission could conceal revenge. Earth was indeed silent, But it was the silence of a predator stalking its prey, the silence before the storm. And in just a few more months, that silence would break in a way that would shake the galaxy to its core. At exactly midnight Earth time, 6 years after the quarantine began, 12 quantum ships phased into normal space above key Council worlds. No alarms sounded. No sensors detected their arrival. They simply appeared, like ghosts stepping through walls. Commander Steele stood on the bridge of the lead ship, the Revenge, as it materialized above the Council's largest shipyard. The massive construction facility orbited a red dwarf star, its sprawling docks building the very ships that maintained Earth's prison. "All ships report ready," Captain Baker's voice came through the quantum comm. Unlike normal communications, these couldn't be intercepted. "Awaiting your command." Steele watched the unsuspecting shipyard through the view screen. Dozens of Council warships sat helpless in their berths. None of their crews had reported for duty yet. This sector's day shift wouldn't begin for another hour. "Send the message," Steele ordered. Across 12 star systems, Earth's ships broadcast simultaneously, "From humanity with love." The first strike began. The Revenge's quantum weapons activated, firing beams that passed straight through the shipyard's shields, as if they didn't exist. Steele watched with grim satisfaction as the yard's main power core exploded, sending ripples of destruction through the massive structure. "Sir," his tactical officer called out, "Council ships are powering up. They're raising shields." "Let them," Steele replied calmly. "Show them how useless those shields are." The Revenge's weapons struck again and again. Each shot phased through the Council ship's defenses, striking vital systems with surgical precision. Engines died. Weapons went dark. In some cases, bridge sections simply disappeared, carved away by weapons that ignored all known laws of physics. Above another Council world, Dr. Walker observed her quantum bombs in action. She had insisted on commanding this part of the mission herself. The bombs phased through the planetary shield and buried themselves deep in military bases, weapon factories, and shipyards. When they detonated, they released their energy in quantum space, bypassing all defenses. "Target Alpha destroyed," she reported coolly. "Moving to Beta Sector." In the Council's central chamber, alarms blared as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The head of the Council, a being from one of the oldest races, stared in horror at the tactical display. "Impossible," he shouted. "Nothing can penetrate our shields. Nothing can bypass the quarantine." But the evidence played out before his eyes. 12 simultaneous attacks, all perfectly coordinated. The Council's greatest weapons and defenses, useless against an enemy that could simply step through them. Back on the Revenge, Steele received the first counterattack attempt. A fleet of Council ships emerged from jump space, weapons charging. "Sir, they're forming a battle line," his tactical officer reported. 5 heavy cruisers, 12 destroyers. Steele almost pitied them. Almost. Show them what else these ships can do. The Revenge phased partially into quantum space, becoming ghost-like. The Council ship's weapons passed harmlessly through it. Then it phased back, but only in selected spots, its quantum weapons appearing inside the Council ship's hull. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted less than 3 minutes. In Earth's underwater command center, Admiral Thompson watched the feeds from all 12 attacks. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. 6 years of preparation, of silent work, of careful planning, all leading to this moment. "Sir," an officer reported, "the Council is attempting to broadcast a surrender message." Thompson shook his head. "No, not yet. They need to understand the full extent of their mistake." He pressed a button on his command chair. "All ships proceed to Phase 2 targets. Show them nowhere is safe." Across space, Earth's quantum ships vanished again, moving to their next objectives. Behind them, they left destroyed shipyards, ruined military bases, and shattered Council ships. More importantly, they left fear. For the first time in its long history, The Galactic Council faced an enemy it couldn't stop, an enemy it had created through its own betrayal, an enemy that had turned the Council's own arrogance into a weapon. And this was only the beginning. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council turned into chaos within minutes. The great circular chamber, usually a place of order and dignity, now echoed with angry shouts and accusations. We must strike back immediately. The Rigelian representative slammed his fist on the podium. His people had lost 3 major shipyards in the human attacks. Launch everything we have at Earth. Break through that quarantine barrier ourselves. With what ships? Asked the Arcturus delegate, her voice bitter. Half our fleet is destroyed. The other half is useless against their weapons. Did you not see the battle footage? Our shields might as well be paper. In his private chamber next to the main hall, the council leader watched the argument through a video feed. His aged hands trembled slightly as he read the latest damage reports. 27 major military installations destroyed. 42 warships lost. Countless smaller facilities reduced to rubble. All in just 6 hours. A soft chime announced a visitor. Enter, he called out. The door slid open to reveal an unexpected face. Representative Jones from the Centauri colonies. His people had been Earth's strongest allies before the quarantine. They're lying to you, Jones said without preamble. All of them. The Rigelians, the Arcturus Confederation. They're the ones who staged the attacks that got Earth quarantined. The council leader's eyes narrowed. What proof do you have? The same proof Marcus Reed found before he disappeared. The proof that got him killed. Jones placed a data crystal on the desk. I've been holding onto this for 6 years, waiting for the right moment. That moment is now. Before the council leader could respond, new alarms blared through the building. On the main screens, more Earth ships appeared above 3 more council worlds. The quantum vessels phased into view like avenging spirits, their weapons already firing. Back in the main chamber, the arguments reached a fever pitch. The humans are monsters, shouted the Rigelian. This proves we were right to contain them. We made them monsters. The younger representative from the Pleiades system stood up. We betrayed them. We imprisoned them without cause. Everything happening now is our fault. The chamber divided literally as well as figuratively. Younger species moved to one side, older ones to the other. Centuries-old alliances cracked under the weight of fear and guilt. On his command ship, Commander Steele watched the Council's chaos through intercepted broadcasts. Beside him, Dr. Walker analyzed readings from their latest attacks. Their technology hasn't changed, she reported. They still haven't found a way to detect or stop our quantum ships. Steele nodded. And they won't. Not in time. He turned to his communications officer. Send the next message. Throughout Council space, every screen and communication device activated at once. Earth's quantum technology bypassed all security, all encryption. The message was simple. You divided the galaxy to imprison us. Now watch as your unity crumbles. You feared our potential. Now fear what you've created. This is only the beginning. The council chamber erupted again as the message played. The Arcturus representative, one of those responsible for framing Earth, tried to slip away quietly. She made it 3 steps before her own security staff stopped her. What are you doing? She demanded. Preventing you from escaping, her chief of security replied coldly. The Arcturus people want answers about your role in the Earth quarantine. Similar scenes played out across the chamber as more security forces moved in, not to protect their representatives, but to arrest them. The council leader watched it all, the data crystal from Jones heavy in his hand. The great alliance that had governed the galaxy for 10,000 years was falling apart in a single day. And somewhere out there, humanity's quantum ships waited in the darkness, ready to strike again, their very existence a promise of more destruction to come. The Council hadn't just failed to cage humanity. They had given them the perfect reason to show exactly why they should never have been caged in the first place. Commander Steele stood in Earth's orbital command center, watching the final preparations for humanity's biggest broadcast. The evidence recovered by Marcus Reed, combined with the data crystal from Representative Jones, would finally expose the truth to every being in the galaxy. Broadcasting systems ready, Dr. Walker reported. She had modified their quantum communication technology to reach every device in Council space simultaneously. No one will be able to block or stop this transmission. Steele nodded. Admiral Thompson, are the defensive lines in position? All ships ready, Thompson's hologram replied. We expect at least 3 species to attempt desperate attacks once their lies are exposed. Let them try. Steele took a deep breath. Begin the broadcast. Across thousands of worlds, screens lit up with Marcus Reed's face. The recording, made minutes before his death, began to play. To all beings in the galaxy, I present the truth about Earth's quarantine. Every attack blamed on humanity was staged. I have proof. The evidence was overwhelming. Security footage showed Regellian ships disguised as human vessels attacking civilian targets. Encrypted communications revealed the Arcturus Confederation's plans to destroy their own trade fleet and blame Earth. Financial records exposed bribes paid to key council members. On the Regellian homeworld, riots broke out within hours. The capital city burned as angry citizens stormed government buildings. Their leaders had not just framed an innocent species, they had started a war they couldn't win. The Arcturus Confederation's ruling council didn't even have time to flee. Their own military arrested them as the evidence of their crimes played on repeat across every screen. Sir, Baker called out from his station, 3 Regellian battle fleets are moving to attack position. They're making a run for Earth. Steele almost smiled. Show them what happens to cowards who resort to desperate measures. Earth's quantum ships appeared around the Regellian fleet, but instead of attacking, they simply transmitted sensor data. The Regellian crews watched in horror as their screens showed quantum bombs already planted in their homeworld's core. Stand down, Steele's voice echoed through their ships, or watch your world crack in half. The Regellian ships powered down immediately. In the council chamber, now under guard by forces loyal to the younger species, the council leader made a final attempt to maintain control. We did what was necessary, he shouted. Humanity's potential for growth, for military power, was too dangerous to ignore. The only danger, Thompson's hologram appeared in the chamber, was to your control over the galaxy. You feared us because we wouldn't bow to your outdated rules, because we grew too fast, learned too quickly, adapted too well. Dr. Walker's image joined him. You thought the quarantine would weaken us. Instead, it forced us to become stronger than you could imagine. We broke your unbreakable barriers. We bypassed your impenetrable shields. We turned your own fear into a weapon. Across council space, more riots erupted. The older species had maintained control through respect and tradition. Now, exposed as conspirators and liars, that control crumbled. On his command ship, Steele received an urgent message from Earth's deep space sensors. Multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel, sir. It's the Arcturus home fleet. They're making the suicide run. Steele's expression hardened. Send them the core bomb footage. The Arcturus fleet received the transmission. Live feeds showing quantum bombs pulsing in their planet's core, ready to detonate. Their suicide run ended before it began. In Earth's command center, Thompson watched the chaos spread across the galaxy. Send the final message, he ordered. Every screen in council space changed again. The message was simple but clear. You feared our potential, so you caged us. You underestimated our resolve, so we broke free. You thought us dangerous, so we showed you true danger. The time for lies is over. The time for a new order begins. Earth awaits your surrender. Across the galaxy, one by one, the conspirator worlds began to submit, not to the council they had corrupted, but to the humanity they had failed to break. The great council chamber looked very different now. Where once the oldest species had sat in positions of honor, their seats now stood empty. Guards from the younger races watched over the proceedings as Admiral Thompson walked to the central podium, his footsteps echoing in the tense silence. "You all know why we're here," he began, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast room. "The old council is gone. Their lies have been exposed. Now comes the price of their betrayal." On the main display, a list appeared. Names of every official involved in the conspiracy against Earth. Next to each name, evidence of their crimes played in silent video loops. "These are the terms of Earth's justice," Thompson continued. "Every person on this list will face trial, not under your old laws, which they twisted to serve themselves, but under new ones. Laws that protect the innocent and punish the guilty, regardless of their species or status." In orbit above the Regellian homeworld, Commander Steele's ship monitored the planet's surrender. The once proud Regellian fleet now floated powerless, their weapons disabled by Earth's quantum technology. "Sir," Baker reported, "the Regellian leadership is being turned over by their own military. Their admiral says they'd rather face Earth's justice than their own people's anger." Steele nodded. "Send in the arrest teams. Remember, we're not here for revenge anymore. We're here for justice." Dr. Walker stood in her lab beneath the Rocky Mountains, studying the quantum bomb readouts. "All cores remain stable," she reported to Thompson via quantum link. "The bombs will stay armed until every conspirator is in custody." Across the galaxy, scenes of arrest and surrender played out. The Arcturus Confederation's former leaders were led away in chains by their own security forces. The Regellian conspiracy members emerged from hiding only to face immediate arrest. Even the smallest players in the plot found nowhere to hide from Earth's quantum sensors. In the council chamber, Thompson displayed the next phase of Earth's plans. The quarantine technology will be dismantled, every piece of it. No species will ever again have the power to cage another. A younger council member, one who had opposed the quarantine, stood up. "And what guarantee do we have that Earth won't use its power to become what the old council feared? Your quantum technology makes you unstoppable." Thompson's response was firm but calm. "Because unlike them, we understand power comes with responsibility. We didn't want this war. We didn't want this technology. They forced both on us, and now we'll use them to make sure nothing like this ever happens again." On Earth, crowds gathered in cities across the planet, watching the proceedings. 6 years of silence had ended in 2 weeks of revelation and justice. The cage had become a weapon, the prisoners now the judges. Steele's ship arrived at the council station, escorting the last group of conspirators. As they were led away, the former council leader looked at him with a mix of fear and confusion. "How?" the old alien asked. "How did you advance so far, so fast?" Steele's answer was simple. "You gave us no choice. You took away every option except to become more powerful than you could imagine. You thought isolation would weaken us. Instead, it focused us, united us, drove us to achieve the impossible." Back in the chamber, Thompson activated the final display. It showed the new structure that would replace the old council, a system of checks and balances, with no species holding absolute power, and Earth ensuring it stayed that way. "The old order is finished," he declared. "Those who betrayed us will face justice. Those who stood with us will help build something new. And Earth will make sure the galaxy never again knows the corruption that led us here." As if to emphasize his words, the last pieces of the quarantine grid visible from the chamber's windows began to power down. The purple lines that had caged humanity faded away, not with a bang, but with a quiet death befitting their creator's fall from power. 1 year after the fall of the old council, the galaxy had changed beyond recognition. The great chamber that had once hosted the corrupt council now served a different purpose. Today, it would witness the signing of the Thompson Doctrine, the new law that would govern all spacefaring species. Admiral Thompson stood at the center of the chamber, older but standing straight and proud. Around him sat representatives from every species in the galaxy, young and old alike. The hierarchy of age that had ruled for thousands of years was gone, replaced by a system of merit and mutual respect. "The trials are complete," Thompson began. "Those who conspired against Earth have faced justice. Now we look to the future." Commander Steele and Dr. Walker sat in places of honor, their roles in Earth's liberation now legendary across the galaxy. The quantum technology they had developed no longer served just as a weapon. It had revolutionized trade, communication, and exploration throughout known space. "The Thompson Doctrine is simple," the Admiral continued. "No species may ever again attempt to imprison or isolate another. The technology of quarantine is banned forever. Any attempt to develop or use such technology will face immediate response from Earth's defense forces. In orbit above, Earth's quantum ships patrolled openly now. Once seen as terrifying weapons of revenge, they had become symbols of protection for younger species just joining the galactic community. Their very presence prevented the strong from oppressing the weak. But Earth's power comes with responsibility," Thompson added. "We hold veto power in the new council not to control, but to protect. Our quantum technology remains our own, not to hoard its benefits, but to ensure it never becomes a weapon of oppression." Dr. Walker stepped forward, activating a holographic display. "We found better uses for our discoveries. Quantum phase technology now powers a new generation of medical devices. Ships once built for war now explore the universe's deepest mysteries. The very science that broke our chains now builds bridges between worlds." In the audience, the younger species representatives watched with hope. Many of them remembered how Earth had protected them during the chaos following the old council's fall. When opportunistic warlords had tried to seize power in the vacuum, Earth's ships had appeared to restore order. Steele stood next to a group of newly graduated officers, the first class of the new Galactic Defense Force. Humans served alongside aliens, teaching them not just about technology and tactics, but about unity and justice. "The quarantine meant to weaken us led to our greatest strength," Steele told them. "Not our technology, but our understanding. We know both the temptation of power and the pain of oppression. That knowledge guides everything we do now." Thompson activated the final display, showing the new galactic map. Trade routes pulsed with life, connecting worlds that had once been divided by the old council's politics. Research stations orbited distant stars, staffed by mixed crews from dozens of species working together. "Sign this doctrine," Thompson said to the assembled representatives, "and join us in building something new. A galaxy where no species fears another. Where progress comes through cooperation, not competition. Where the strong protect the weak, and the wise guide the young." One by one, they came forward to sign. The former Regellian worlds, now under new leadership, the reformed Arcturus Confederation. The younger species who had stood with Earth. Even the oldest races, those who had opposed the quarantine but lacked the power to stop it. As the last signature was recorded, the chamber's great windows showed a spectacular sight. Earth's quantum ships performed a synchronized phase maneuver, their hulls becoming transparent then solid again, glowing with beautiful colors. What had once been weapons of war now created art in the depths of space. "Remember this day," Thompson concluded, "not as the end of the old order, but as the beginning of something greater. Earth's revenge is complete. Now starts Earth's legacy, protecting the peace we fought so hard to achieve." The galaxy had feared humanity's potential for growth and change. In doing so, they had forced humanity to grow beyond anyone's expectations. Now that same potential would ensure a future where no species would ever again face the injustice Earth had endured.